Most dogs do not choose a sleeping place randomly. When the house becomes quiet and movement fades, a decision is made that has little to do with softness or routine. Sleep is the only time awareness fully drops. Muscles release, vigilance slows. The nervous system stops scanning for change. Because of that, location matters more at night than at any other moment. This choice is not a display of affection and not a habit formed over time. It is a biological signal of where the body feels safe enough to disengage completely. Research in canine behavior shows deep rest occurs only in environments the nervous system reads as predictable and non-threatening. That is why nighttime behavior reveals truths daytime actions often hide. If understanding quiet communication matters, subscribing helps. To see what happens after the lights go out, it starts with understanding why sleep is the most vulnerable state in a dog's life. Sleep is the most vulnerable state for a dog. For a dog, sleep is not passive downtime or simple recovery. It is the point at which protection drops to its lowest level. Sensory monitoring fades. Reaction speed slows. Muscles release tension that normally keeps the body ready to move. This shift represents the most exposed condition. A dog enters across the entire day. In natural settings, this depth of rest occurs only in locations where danger has already been ruled out through repeated experience. Safety is not assumed. It is confirmed through consistency, predictability, and absence of threat over time. That ancient requirement never disappeared as dogs adapted to domestic life. It reshaped itself. The instinct that once evaluated dens and shelter now evaluates rooms, beds, and proximity to human presence. When a dog chooses to sleep near a person, the body is not acting on affection as a first priority. The nervous system is performing a quiet risk assessment. The conclusion sounds simple, but carries weight. This location allows awareness to disengage. That is why nighttime behavior reveals more than daytime interaction. During waking hours, routines guide behavior. A dog may follow, sit nearby, or respond to voice cues out of learning or expectation. Sleep removes that layer. The question becomes more fundamental. Is it safe to lower internal defenses here? If the answer is affirmative, the body releases fully and rest deepens. When the answer remains uncertain, sleep stays light and fragmented. Viewing sleep through this lens changes interpretation. The position chosen at night is not about comfort or closeness alone. It represents trust operating at a biological level, shaped by repeated signals rather than emotional intention. What your dog's nervous system reads from you. While rest unfolds, a dog does not respond to spoken language, emotional meaning, or conscious intention. The nervous system responds to physical information. Breathing rhythm communicates stability or tension. Muscle tone signals calm or readiness. Subtle movements register as predictability or disruption. Dogs are highly sensitive to these cues because survival has long depended on reading bodily states before danger appears. During shared sleep, this process continues without effort. Signals are not interpreted intellectually. They are absorbed. Over many nights, the dog's internal system begins to adjust to what remains consistent. This adjustment does not happen instantly and does not require perfection. Regular exposure to steadiness teaches the nervous system what to expect. The body becomes part of the surrounding environment rather than an unpredictable variable. This process is regulation, not intuition or energy exchange. When a human body remains calm and predictable, the dog's vigilance gradually decreases. When restlessness or tension appears frequently, partial alertness remains. This explains why deeper settling occurs near some individuals and not others. Preference is not the mechanism at work. Biology responds to stability. Without awareness, personal rest patterns teach the dog how much monitoring remains necessary. The influence flows quietly. Over time, the dog's body begins matching the level of regulation it repeatedly encounters. Rest becomes easier when consistency dominates the environment. Why your dog returns to the same spot each night. Many dogs select the same sleeping position night after night with remarkable precision. The location, distance, and orientation remain unchanged. This repetition is not stubbornness or aesthetic choice. Predictability reduces internal workload. When outcomes repeat without negative consequence, the nervous system relaxes faster. That familiar position carries a stored message. Rest occurred here without interruption. No reassessment is required. The body remembers safety without effort. Comfort plays a secondary role. Stability comes first. Changing locations introduces uncertainty, even when the new spot appears softer or warmer. Each night that reinforces the same outcome strengthens the association. Less scanning occurs. Less adjustment is needed. Over time, this repetition builds physical trust rather than emotional attachment. Trust at this level does not involve thought or feeling. The body simply recognizes a reliable pattern. That is why location matters more than closeness. The spot itself becomes a cue. It signals that rest has worked before and will likely work again. This memory lives in the nervous system, not in conscious preference. What changes inside a dog who sleeps beside you? Regular proximity to a calm and predictable presence leads to gradual internal adjustment rather than sudden transformation. Over time, stress responses lose intensity. Muscles release tension sooner. Breathing patterns slow earlier in the sleep cycle. Research in canine behavior links stable environments with reduced reactivity, not because affection increases, but because uncertainty decreases. The body does not interpret the experience through emotion. A simpler lesson takes hold. This setting remains consistent. Regulation comes before emotional meaning. As vigilance lowers, energy is no longer reserved for monitoring. That energy shifts toward deeper rest. Deeper rest alters how the nervous system functions during waking hours. Transitions become smoother. Internal tension eases. Reactivity softens. These shifts rarely announce themselves through obvious behavior. No visible milestone signals the change. Adjustment occurs quietly within the system. Observing a dog during rest offers useful information. Safety does not express itself through motion or signal. It appears as stillness. A body that remains settled does not scan the room. Posture stays loose rather than held. Breathing flows evenly. When frequent repositioning occurs or tension remains visible, monitoring is still active. Deep safety looks uneventful because no response is required. This state is not obedience and not fatigue. It reflects regulation. True rest does not need to prove itself. It does not demand attention. It does not ask for reassurance. It exists without effort. Over time, this kind of rest reshapes baseline functioning. The nervous system becomes more efficient because vigilance is no longer necessary. Stillness during sleep reveals more about trust than daytime behavior ever could. It shows that awareness has lowered without concern. The body has determined that monitoring is unnecessary. That conclusion forms quietly through repetition. Proximity supports this process when presence remains steady and predictable. What develops is not attachment as an emotion, but trust at a physical level. When the body recognizes safety consistently, rest deepens without instruction. The change remains subtle, internal, and lasting, shaping behavior without needing to be seen. Why this helps some dogs more than others? Responses to shared sleep differ because nervous systems differ. Regulation does not follow a single pattern, and the pace at which rest deepens is shaped by several factors working together. Age plays a role. Younger bodies often release tension more quickly because recovery demands are lower and physical feedback is clearer. Older bodies may remain partially alert for longer periods due to stiffness, discomfort, or changes in sensory processing that make settling slower even in familiar settings. Sensitivity also matters. Some dogs process environmental input efficiently and downshift into rest with little effort. Others register more information at once and require additional time before vigilance fades. Past experience influences this process as well. A dog that has lived through unpredictability may continue scanning longer, even when current conditions are safe. This is not caution in a conscious sense. It is the nervous system protecting stability until enough repetition confirms safety. None of these responses indicate resistance or emotional distance. They reflect systems operating at different speeds. Expecting identical sleep behavior overlooks this reality and often leads to unnecessary adjustment attempts. The aim is not uniform outcomes. Support works best when matched to the system present. For some dogs, proximity leads to deep, sustained rest with minimal effort. For others, nearby presence reduces vigilance without fully removing it. Both responses represent progress. Partial settling is not a failure. It is a step within that dog's capacity at the time. Recognizing individual response prevents comparison and pressure. Trust grows when support respects what the body communicates rather than imposing an ideal. Over time, consistent conditions allow regulation to expand naturally. The nervous system adapts through repetition, not demand. When expectations align with individual capacity, rest improves without force. Shared sleep becomes supportive rather than evaluative, allowing regulation to develop at its own pace and in its own way. For more calm, science-based insights into dog behavior, consider subscribing. The subtle stress some dogs carry at night. One part of nighttime behavior often goes unnoticed because it does not look like stress in the usual sense. Some dogs gradually adjust their bodies to accommodate human presence while sleeping. A position is maintained longer than comfort supports. Movement becomes limited. Shifts that would normally occur are delayed or avoided, even when the body signals the need to change posture. This pattern is not driven by fear or visible anxiety. It develops through accommodation. Over time, the body learns that remaining still may preserve closeness or prevent disruption. From the outside, this can resemble calm rest. There is no pacing, no restlessness, and no vocal response. Everything appears settled. Internally, effort may still be present. Control can exist without full relaxation. True rest allows small, natural movements. Stretching happens without hesitation. Repositioning occurs as needed. Muscles release and reset. When a body stays fixed for long periods, regulation may still involve monitoring the environment rather than resting within it. This observation does not mean shared sleep is harmful or incorrect. It highlights the value of attention to subtle cues. A relaxed posture does not automatically signal deep rest. Watching how freely movement occurs during the night offers clearer information than stillness alone. Does posture change easily? Do adjustments happen without hesitation? Does the body settle again quickly after movement? This is not about blame or correction. It is about noticing information the nervous system provides quietly. Awareness allows thoughtful adjustments that support deeper rest. When the body no longer needs to hold position or restrict movement to maintain comfort, regulation improves naturally. Supportive sleep does not demand effort. It allows rest to unfold without management. By recognizing these small signs, comfort is preserved without asking the body to work through the night to maintain it. When sleeping together builds deep trust, nighttime proximity can support deep trust when the situation remains mutual and free from expectation. No signals are sent. No responses are required. No performance is expected from either body. Space is shared without interaction, and that distinction matters. In this state, closeness exists without management. Neither body needs to adjust for the other. This is the condition where shared sleep most effectively supports regulation. Presence remains passive rather than engaging. Attention does not move back and forth. The environment stays consistent from one night to the next. Under this kind of predictability, the nervous system begins to register closeness as neutral rather than demanding. Proximity no longer carries obligation. Nothing needs to be maintained. Nothing must be monitored. Over repeated exposure, this stability allows the body to release more fully. Trust develops quietly in this setting. It does not appear as attachment or emotional intensity. It forms as physical confidence. The body learns that closeness does not require vigilance. Internal scanning decreases, settling happens faster, adjustments become fewer, rest deepens without effort. This change is subtle and often invisible. There is no excitement to mark the shift. Calm simply arrives sooner and lasts longer. Emotional safety does not draw attention to itself. It does not seek expression. It exists in ease. When closeness carries no expectation, regulation improves naturally. Shared sleep stops feeling like something that must be navigated and begins functioning as a stable background condition. This is the point where nighttime proximity becomes supportive rather than performative. The relationship no longer relies on interaction during rest. Stability replaces intensity. The bond settles at a biological level instead of an emotional one. Over time, this allows sleep to deepen in a way that feels effortless. Trust does not need demonstration. It shows itself through regular breathing, relaxed posture, and the absence of tension as the night progresses. When nighttime proximity creates dependence, in certain situations, regulation can gradually narrow into reliance. When deep relaxation happens only under a very specific set of nighttime conditions, the nervous system begins to treat that setup as the main route to settling. This pattern is not driven by emotional dependence or separation anxiety. The process is physiological. The body learns efficiency. One environment becomes associated with the fastest path to calm. Over time, that association strengthens through repetition rather than intention. When that familiar condition is absent or altered, the response is usually subtle. Panic does not appear. Distress is not dramatic. Instead, rest becomes lighter and less restorative. Settling takes more time. The body remains slightly active instead of fully releasing. Recovery feels incomplete. This shift does not signal harm or failure. It provides useful feedback. Regulation has become precise rather than adaptable. Specific regulation is not a problem by itself. It simply means flexibility has not yet been developed. Flexibility grows when safety is supported across more than one context. The goal is expansion, not removal. Existing routines do not need to disappear. Introducing additional safe arrangements allows the nervous system to discover that rest is possible in more than one way. This process works best when adjustments are gradual and predictable. Small changes in position, spacing, or routine allow the body to explore new pathways without triggering alertness. Over time, the system learns that calm is not tied to a single condition. Regulation becomes portable rather than fixed. Dependence, in this sense, does not mean something has gone wrong. It highlights an opportunity to strengthen resilience while preserving security. Trust remains intact when change is introduced gently. As flexibility improves, settling becomes easier across situations, not harder. A dog with adaptable regulation rests more efficiently because the nervous system does not need to wait for one precise setup. Recovery improves. Adjustment becomes smoother. The bond does not weaken in this process. It becomes more stable because rest no longer depends on one narrow condition. Gradual variety builds confidence quietly, allowing sleep to support balance instead of limiting it. Supporting healthy sleep without breaking the bond. Supporting healthy sleep does not require distance, and it does not rely on constant contact. What matters most is how much effort the body must use in order to rest. Small environmental adjustments can significantly reduce that effort. Position plays a role. Available space plays a role. Freedom to adjust posture without disruption plays a role. When movement is possible without hesitation, regulation deepens naturally. A body that can stretch, reposition, or shift weight without consequence settles more fully over time. Routines matter just as much. Regular bedtimes, familiar nighttime patterns, and consistent cues reduce uncertainty before rest even begins. Predictability lowers the need for monitoring. When the environment behaves the same way night after night, the nervous system does not stay alert waiting for change. Stability becomes expected rather than evaluated. In this context, consistency carries more influence than physical closeness alone. Different dogs regulate in different ways. Some settle most deeply through direct proximity, where warmth and presence provide grounding. Others relax better with nearby space, where safety remains available without physical pressure. Neither response signals a stronger bond. Each reflects a system responding to comfort in its own way. Supporting rest means recognizing which conditions reduce internal effort, not enforcing one ideal arrangement. Healthy sleep environments allow rest without management. The body does not need to hold position, restrict movement, or stay partially alert to protect comfort. When regulation no longer requires effort, recovery improves. As recovery improves, the bond does not diminish. It becomes quieter. Stability replaces intensity. Trust continues without strain. The aim is not separation and not increased closeness. The aim is balance. When sleep supports the nervous system rather than challenging it, rest becomes restorative for both sides. Over time, that balance strengthens connection by allowing regulation to happen naturally, without asking either body to give more than it comfortably can during the night. The bottom line, what this will happen, really means sleeping beside a dog each night does not produce dramatic outcomes or hidden danger. The effect is subtle and cumulative. Regulation becomes familiar. The body learns where effort is unnecessary. Awareness lowers. Vigilance fades. Over time, consistency reshapes how safety is experienced. This is not attachment and not dependence. It is trust formed for repetition. Nothing needs proof. No emotional intensity is required. The nervous system remembers what works and returns to it. With this understanding, shared sleep stops being a question of right or wrong. Awareness replaces judgment. Small observations guide small adjustments. Rest improves without disrupting connection. When sleep supports regulation naturally, the relationship remains calm, stable, and sustainable. If understanding how dogs experience safety beneath visible behavior matters, subscribing supports learning more.